whole party.
Mm-hmm.
And and so during the negotiations, you kind of did things that improved the working conditions for the company
Yeah.
and for the employee. So you became more profitable. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I liked about it was that it was a good partnership.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
the company brings something up that they felt like was a detriment to them. We
Right.
bring something up that we felt like was a detriment to us. We
Right.
worked it
Well, it sounds
out. And
like.
that was stuff.
Mhm. And were you the full-time union president, or were you still working in the shop?
Oh yeah, I still worked in the
Yeah.
mill. Yeah.
You weren't a
We
big
didn't
you
have
were
a time.
you weren't big enough to
We
have
had
somebody who
300.
was a full-time. Yeah.
No,
Right.
no.
And
We had
around that time,
350 members.
your brother, Red Dover, he had become, at some point, became the president of the Weyerhaeuser local,
Right. Yeah,
or
I know
one
he
of the
did.
top
Right.
officers, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, when you think about the special skills that you needed to be, um, what did it take to be president of that local union? What do you think the skills were that you had to develop to be the local union president?
Well, I think some of the skills I already had.
Right?
I think some of the skills I already had is I like people.
Yeah.
And so you need to get along with people. That's the first thing. You need to get along with people.
Right.
And then the second thing I needed was to learn more about the history of the union and the company, more about how they negotiated in the past. And all the old timers gave that. So I sat
Uh-huh.
down with them. How do you do
Right.
this? How do you do that? I was interested because I planned on working there until I retired.
Right.
This is going to be my job until I retire. I didn't want it to go away. I wanted to
Right.
make it better, you know. So
And
that gave me
you were probably all in the back then, all these companies would have been part of the industry, the TOC pension fund. And so,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
And so you have your old members. If they wanted as much retirement as they could get.
yeah,
If you have your new guys, they wanted as much wages as they could get.
yeah, right. And
So
so
you went back.
that's like a classic labor leader's problem. So let's talk about
Exactly.
a little bit about that. How did you deal with the fact that you had different interests in the membership? That's not so easy to do, is it?
It, we, no, we just talked it out.
Yeah,
Sometimes, you have these old timers going, well, you young guys come in and get everything all at once. We didn't get that when I was young.
yeah,
We had to chip away at a little bit at a time,
yeah,
you know. But then the young guys say, yeah, well, you guys got a good retirement
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
And you're just talking things out, what's better for the whole,
Right.
instead of individual.
So, what did
Yeah.
you like the most about? Well, let me ask you about the job first, of being the clerk for Clearfer and Nikolai, and then eventually Morgan Nikolai. Uh, what did you like the most about your job there, being the clerk in shipping?
The shipping, I just liked it because it was fast paced.
Yeah.
You could come up with ideas to improve the efficiency. I got to work with a bunch of people. You
Hmm.
know, I didn't have to work against a machine
Yeah.
or against something else. I worked with people. I like that.
Yeah.
But it was just a myriad of things that you could work with.
Yeah.
You know,
And probably a cleaner, safer job than out on the floor there.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah. And so,
yeah.
what about, let's switching to your job as a union president? What did you like the most about that?
I'd say it to people. I like to deal with people.
Yeah.
And I was younger, and I tried to have more patience. And then sometimes I found out I had less patience as I got older.
Uh huh.
You realize what you've gone through,
Yeah.
But the people are the key. If you like people, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
I had an old timer tell me one time. He said, most people will forget what you said to them, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told a guy one time, that's pretty smart stuff. You know, he was an older guy, and we were in a meeting, and we were trying to resolve this issue, and he was saying, "Hey, you can't talk down to people. You got to talk on an even level and stuff." And that wisdom, those older guys got it because
Yeah.
they've dealt with it a long time.
Right.
Those issues.
Well, let's talk about the
And another thing,
challenges. Go ahead.
I said another thing I did too is when I was during the union business, I took classes at the Labor Education and Research Center
I
at the U of
remember.
O.
Sure. Yeah, I remember you were in a class.
Exactly.
We had your negotiating committee in a
Yeah.
class. It was over at when the Labor Council was over there in Springfield up by Gateway, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Boy, that was a long time ago.
Oh, and that was good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like you like the labor classes?
Oh yeah. I thought
Yeah.
they were great. That's one thing I think sometimes our school system now needs to teach some of that stuff, how that stuff comes up.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, now we have a lot of people think that the government takes care of people.
Yeah.
We don't need any
Right.
groups to take care of them. The government will take
Yeah. Right.
But
So what about the
how do you
challenges?
get the
What were
old
the
guys off
biggest
the mound?
challenges? What were the biggest challenges for you on the job, being that shipping clerk? What was the hardest part of that job?
Uh, they trained me so well. There was really nothing
It
about
was
it
it
that was
wasn't a real
hard.
hard job. Yeah.
It was it was a great job. You just had to make sure you knew what was going in there. You had to do it in an efficient manner. And there's one thing that I've realized after working all my life is most, not all, but most people want to do a good job.
Yeah.
They want to be good at the job they do, you know, and they want to feel fulfilled on their job. So you can get those three things. And an
Yeah.
employee is going to be a good employee.
Yeah.
And if the employee is happy, they do better in their job, and the company makes more money.
Right.
It all fits together.
So what about
Right.
the challenges being the union president? What was the most difficult thing about being local union president?
That was dealing with these young guys that wanted everything right now, and they would be a little bit. We had this one guy, for example, that would take off a day during the week so he
Yeah.
could work the weekend,
Yeah.
and so he'd get more money on the weekend.
Oh, so he could get
But he was
overtime.
taking
Yeah. Right.
exactly. So we had to sit down and deal with him and said, hey, that's not right,
Yeah. Right.
you know. And just deal with people like that try to manipulate the system
People
that's
trying to
been in
manipulate the
progress for
system.
a long
Right.
time.
Well, you didn't have a lot of
Yeah,
people like that, did you?
no, that's
Yeah.
one thing the people I worked with at Clear
Yeah.
and Morgan Nicolai were good people. They were hard workers.
Yeah. Now, what about I think you've told me something about your relationship with your coworkers. How about your relationship with the boss there and with customers and the public? How did that work? How did you had to represent the union with the employer? How was that? Was it always a good thing? Was it sometimes difficult? How would you describe it?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't want to brag or nothing like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a good worker.
Yeah.
I go to job, I do my job, I do it well. I
Yeah.
took pride in my job,
Yeah.
and they knew that,
Yeah. Right.
and they've complimented them on my job as a
Right.
worker and as a union
Mm-hmm.
president. And so you get a good relationship with those guys.
Yeah.
And most of those bosses want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
They want to be good at their job.
Right.
Now, I had this one guy, this one boss that we had a guy that uh, came in late, and he was kind of getting on to him. And I told the boss, hey, just kind of slack up on him. He's had a tough time with his family. His sister died and stuff like that. So he's probably not thinking real clear now and stuff. And the boss sit down. He said, I'm glad you told me that. He hadn't realized that, you know.
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
it was a good conversation.
Right.
And so everybody's got, problems, and everybody can work to help each other out,
Mm-hmm.
So I got along good with it.
Yeah. So as you look at those years, let's see, you were at the start at Clearfer in 73, and then the strike took place in 88, and you never went back to Morgan Nicolai.
No,
And
no.
then Morgan Nicolai closed what year?
I think a couple of years after that.
They worked with replacement
Um,
workers for a couple years, and then they closed.
yeah. Now the
Yeah.
problem with the replacement workers is that none of the old timers went across.
Yeah.
Most of the old timers didn't go,
Yeah.
and the old timers is what had your wisdom.
Yeah. Right.
They did all the machinery, the
Yeah.
setup, and all that, so the quality wasn't as good.
Yeah.
You know, and so they just couldn't manufacture. And
Yeah.
then they did exactly what they wanted to do. They sold everything off, got their money, and away they went.
Yeah.
So and
Well, what
there's no
about
law.
the between when you started and the strike? And we'll talk more about the strike, but what are the biggest things that changed in the industry between when you started in 73 and the strike? Was it about did the technology change? Did the market change? Did the management change? What were the biggest things that you saw change between when you started at Clearfer and when the strike started at Morgan Nicolai?
Well, that's a good question. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I just felt like that we got into a situation with a company that felt like they could come in and manipulate the union and get a 30% decrease in wages and benefits and make a bigger profit. And I thought
Yeah.
they thought they had enough swagger to do all that.
Yeah.
You know,
Was 30
but I don't know what
30%
changed
was
in
the
the
size of the,
marketplace.
yeah,
What
was
changed?
30% was what they were asking for in takeaway?
Yeah, right, across the board. And I had this negotiation guy. His name was LeRoy Pasquini. Nice guy. We sat down, we negotiated, and he told me what he wanted and stuff. He said, we're going to ask for a 30% decrease across the board. He said, I just want to tell you, there's nothing personal in this. And I go,
Yeah.
wow,
Wow.
that's maybe
How
hard
could
to
that
say.
not be personal?
But,
He was the management representative.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you started by saying that he was a nice guy.
But he
So,
was.
yeah. So there weren't,
Yeah.
you didn't see a lot of changes in the industry as far as technological change. Some parts of the wood products industry between 70 and the late 80s were using a lot more computerized equipment and stuff. You didn't see much change in the way you were making doors.
No, because we were pretty up to speed on all that.
Yeah.
The Clear Fur products
Yeah.
We had electric eyes. We had computers. We were the most efficient door plan around.
Yeah.
We made more doors per man than
Yeah.
anybody else.
So
But
you were pretty, would you say that Clear Fur and then Nikolai after were kind of cutting edge as far as the industry went, as far as
yes, right,
technology and
yeah,
production methods and product line?
right.
You know, what
And
what sort of doors were they? Were they all types of doors or mostly interior doors for buildings or large service
oh,
doors?
they're out. They're all types of doors. We had closet doors, bifold doors,
Yeah.
louvered doors,
Yeah.
real fancy outside doors.
Yeah.
We
Right.
we even made doors for the Japanese market that were shorter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so that's interesting. Because one of the
Exactly.
reasons, yeah, that's very interesting. Because I remember one of the reasons that some of the sawmills got in trouble was because they weren't cutting, like, say, two by fours to the specs that the Japanese wanted, and it was if you had really old equipment, you couldn't even really adjust the equipment to cut
Right.
it to their specs. But so you were already making specialty products
Oh
for,
yeah.
yeah,
And the doors were shorter, and
yeah,
we were shipping that stuff over to Japan. Yeah,
yeah, very interesting.
yeah. And I really thought Fur had a good market share.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did good in that.
What about okay, so let's talk about the strike specifically. Um, Starts in 1988. Did you see it coming? Did they give you some notice that you talked about that guy saying they wanted 30%? Did they give you some signals that there was going to be that type of takeaway on the table?
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. That's how they came in. There's
Yeah,
no ifs and buts about it.
yeah,
They said if we didn't take the 30% cut, they were going to force us to
yeah,
strike. He wasn't going to negotiate. Bango, that was it.
right.
So it was and we presented that to the membership, and they go, well, we're the best door plan in the country. We make more money than anybody in the country. Why do they want 30% more?
Right, right.
So everybody
So,
decided to strike.
yeah. And were you surprised that you had to strike? Or did you kind of know that that was going to happen? Some of the
I think
membership must have been pretty surprised.
they didn't think that they would force us to strike
Yeah,
because we were a good profitable company.
yeah,
So they couldn't have, we never hardly missed work. We always worked,
yeah,
and uh, yeah, they were kind of surprised, but they stuck right with it. This strike, sure, we had some people cross the picket line, but the majority didn't.
yeah,
And so we kept that fight going for 2 years.
yeah,
And after 2 years, the union people can't vote,
yeah, right.
so it allows the
Yeah, yeah,
replacement
they
workers to vote.
have
And
decertification.
so,
Yeah,
uh, exactly, and it's kind of interesting. A lot of people don't know that. Me and you do know it because I lived through it, and
yeah,
teach it, and stuff. But it's kind of interesting stuff how
yeah,
that can happen, you know. But life goes on. You
yeah.
learn a
So,
lesson.
so then who was who was the representative supporting you from the Western Council? Who was your rep, union rep that you worked with? I can't remember
Oh,
who was who back then.
I'm trying to remember his name. It just slips me.
So Jim
Yep,
Bledsoe would have been the head
Jim.
of the
So yeah,
council. But
but
he
then
would have
there's
been,
another. I think
yeah.
Draper. I think his last name was Draper.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so Mike Draper. Yeah. And
Yeah,
he ended up succeeding Bledsoe at the council. So
yeah,
he was your immediate representative.
right.
Okay. I
And then
didn't know.
we had a couple other guys from Rosenberg that
Yeah.
were the intermediaries for that.
Right.
But I tell you what, it's back in the old days, as you know it, is that companies like Roseboro and Roseburg,
Yeah.
they kind of set the standard. And whatever they got, everybody else fell in line, you
Right.
know.
Right. The pattern.
And exactly. And that's why they thought that our strike was so important. They didn't want to see a small company like ours cave in and set this low standard.
Yeah.
Everything was chipped in with us,
Well, how did you feel
you
about
know.
that pressure though?
I
Because
had
the
a
union as a whole doesn't want to lower any standards that are a foot in the door, and yet people's jobs are at stake. And sometimes members say, well, we should make the concession. It's
exactly,
our,
yeah.
and so how did you feel about that sort of pressure? Was there a lot of pressure on you from some people
Yeah, it was.
you know,
And, you know, as 71 years old now, I look back on that, and I was running about 40 years old during this time.
yeah,
I felt very confident that I could get a job in any place. I felt confident in my skills and abilities to get
yeah,
another job. Um, but there was other guys that were 62, 63, right on the
yeah,
cusp
yeah,
of retirement. They were worried,
yeah,
you know, they had a couple more years to get to 65.
yeah,
And those guys worried a lot about it, you know.
yeah,
But the majority of the people decided, hey, you know, this is what's right,
yeah,
you know. But it's a tough deal, you know.
yeah,
I probably feel more empathy
right.
for those guys now as I've
Than you
gotten older.
did. Yeah, yeah. You were saying that before when I talked to you that you had even had
Yeah,
some of those folks in your church congregation, I think.
exactly, right?
Yeah. So the let's see, there were around, I can't remember exactly, it was around 300 workers there, right? Or is it a little less than
350. Yeah, around
350?
350.
And
Yeah.
so do you know how many people cross the picket line?
No, not I. I should know, and I probably did at one time, but I can't remember.
Was it
You know,
dozens
Matthew.
or yeah,
Yeah, it was does. Yeah, Matthew would probably know. Matthew had a
yeah.
good mind, you know.
And do you ever remember having kind of a direct conversation with any of those people that ended up crossing where you tried to convince them not to cross the picket line?
I did, you know, and it just got to the point where, you know, they said, you know, I just need another job.
Yeah,
I just, you know, and I said, well, go get one. And it came down to this. I'm 62 years old. I know how to do this job.
yeah,
For the last 20 years. And, you know, when I was younger, I thought, wow, man, you know. But now as I get older, yeah, I can see a real concern on their part. They
yeah,
didn't know if they
right,
could go out and
yeah. So you think it was more pressure on the older members than the younger members more likely to stay on strike?
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. The younger guys, uh, they were young, they'd go out and get another job pretty fast.
yeah, right.
The older guys were tough, you know, and but all those older guys had great work.
Yeah,
A bunch of those guys got jobs because all the mills gobbled them up.
yeah,
You know, you just had to take initiative to go out and put that job
yeah.
application out
Although the
because you know warehouses hired a lot of
unemployment rate is still pretty high then. I mean, it wasn't a great
yeah
time to get a job. It wasn't as
no
bad as it was in '86 when the warehouser people went out on strike, but
yeah
probably the unemployment was still 7% or something.
oh yeah
Um,
probably yeah but a good worker never got a good worker get a job
yeah,
you know a good worker they got that reputation
yeah,
you know
especially
and
somebody who's got a special skill, skilled trades people. Um,
exactly
what
yeah
about now? They also hired striker replacements. And I remember
right
I remember being on the picket line there with the SSN people,
Yeah, right.
Dennis, and that was right after I'd come, and there were young people had been recruited by the company to cross the picket line. What was that experience like? I just looked at a picture in the Springfield News. We might actually have it up in the exhibit, but it's a picture of, you'll remember this stuff, of a car pushing its way through all the pickets who were kind of around it, and sometimes we
Oh
get in
yeah,
front of the car, but we have to keep moving and stuff. But that was some scary moments.
it's pretty intense moments.
Yeah, really.
And
How do you think about that now?
it, it's intense. You think about people that haven't had a job, and all they got to do is walk across that picket line. They're getting a job that pays pretty good money. Bangle. And do I know what they went through this before this job? No, I don't. You know, but they were desperate enough to go across that. He called names and shouted
Yeah,
out to get
yeah,
that job. You know,
yeah,
I had this truck driver I knew personally that had his own trucks,
yeah,
and he would roll across a picket line to pick up a load of doors
yeah,
to haul. And I asked him one day, so you're telling me you can't find another load going someplace that you have to cross a picket line? He said, yeah, but this is just so easy. This is just so easy to get. You
yeah,
know, they didn't really care about the fight or how it affected
yeah,
anything down the road. It was just easy money right there,
yeah. But
you know.
that sort of
And
experience doesn't make you feel good about your brother worker. I mean,
their fellow man, yeah,
you had like a
yeah.
community of people working there, and that's what the union's about. And when you have that experience, it must have made you pretty angry.
Well, I did, but um, what can a guy do? A guy's got to live by what you think is right and wrong. You can't just be mad at somebody and knock them on the head. You got to.
Yeah,
It's a tough deal. You know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
I I wouldn't I wouldn't wish that on anybody else.
yeah,
But just think about just think about those labor classes that you guys taught when labor just newly formed. There was no safety rules. There's no hours of labor. People just worked till they dropped. They didn't have no pension, none of this, none of that.
yeah,
And that all was earned by blood, sweat, and tears.
right.
And now I think those guys crossing the picket line, they didn't think they needed the union, but they thought the government would help.
Yeah,
The government's going to provide. The
right.
government's going to provide the safety, the hours of labor, all that other stuff.
Yeah,
And the education's kind of interesting. If you know what started it, it's like the public school system.
yeah,
Back in the old days,
right.
you know, there was really no public school. The rich people got school.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, when did you know that the strike was lost?
Oh boy. Um, I don't know. I'd like to say at the very last.
Yeah,
Would you say at the first anniversary?
yeah,
At the first anniversary, we had a good showing, good vote, and all that. But we realized it just keeps going. You know,
yeah,
people start keep coming in, keep making doors, and he felt like man and stuff. And that's why we told people, you know, get out and get a job, get out and get a job, and still come
yeah.
down here and take it because we might
But
be out last.
did you win the first decertification vote after a year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you lost the next one.
pretty, yeah, because
Yeah.
no, I think so. Yeah, I just can't remember the second one.
Yeah. And by the second one, did you have another job somewhere else?
I think the first one is the only time you can vote. I don't
Yeah.
think the second one you can
Right.
vote.
No, no,
Yeah.
you're right about that. I mean, but by the time the union was actually decertified, had you already moved on to another job?
Oh yeah. I was working part time someplace else, still doing the union business because I felt
Uh-huh.
like I should, kind of keep things organized
Yeah.
and
Oh, so
stuff.
you did a little, you did some work for the union for a while.
Oh yeah, right.
And then, yeah, because I remember looking at some of the news stories and you went out to, didn't you take a contingent of people out to Oshkosh to talk to the
Yeah,
company there or to picket the company there?
yes, yeah.
And what
And
kind of, what sort of experience was that?
that was a great experience. Um, we went and visited LeRoy Pasquini's residence,
Mm-hmm.
and he made a comment about something about, you realize this is my neighborhood? I said, well, yeah. I says,
Yeah.
you came out to my neighborhood,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the funny,
Look what you did to my
he just wanted
community.
to let people know that
Yeah.
exactly, but it was, and we met with that door plant back in Oshkosh,
Yeah.
and they were an old door company. They wasn't nearly as uh, modernized as we were,
Yeah.
and they were worried about losing their company and stuff. And that
This
was tough to
is
see,
this the Morgan
you know.
company or the Morgan you
Yeah,
described
right.
as an investment group, but there, what was the other door company?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that's all right. That's okay. I might be
That's
able to
been a
find out,
long time ago.
but they were in Arkansas, you say? Did you say Arkansas?
Wisconsin,
Oh,
Oshkosh,
no, they're in Wisconsin. Okay, no, Oshkosh. Yeah.
Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Great people.
Yeah.
That group of people were great,
Yeah.
absolutely great.
Yeah.
They took us in their homes. They talked to us. We went
Right.
down to their door and went to it. Just great people.
And so you must have had here you've been thrust into a role. You'd been a local president, but didn't have to be in the public so much. But over the course of that, you became basically a public figure and a leader in a different way, maybe than you were when you first got elected president. How did you feel about that? Did you like that experience?
Well, I didn't really like it. I felt like I had to do it
Yeah,
because we had to have a face. We had to have a face put on the group, you know. And I knew what was going on behind the scenes. I knew the negotiations. I knew what Morgan wanted, wasn't good. And I
yeah,
felt like I could talk about family wage jobs and profiteering and stuff like that.
right,
And then going through and the stuff that I went through with um, the Labor Education Research Center, I kind of learned some things about how to at a press conference to say the thing a couple of times,
right,
not to
yeah,
get up and to keep ahead and stuff like that.
right.
Um,
So you developed leadership skills from the situation demanded that you develop probably some new skills as a
right,
spokesperson and
exactly,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
right. Well, tell me about a little bit. We'll leave that for now. And just tell me about your work life since. You told me a little bit about you got a job up in doing some building maintenance or building supervision in the
Yeah.
public
It was
sector
really
in
kind of
Marcola.
interesting job. Is that well? Now the one of the guys I worked with, or a gal I worked with, her brother was a rental manager.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Leroy, I got a job. I manage a lot of rentals. I need upkeep on those.
Right,
That's a big job." And so I started working for him, and we'd go out to these rentals, clean them up, paint them, fix them up, and re-rent them.
right.
Well, then I had a friend that was a plant operations manager for the Marcola School District.
Uh-huh.
He said, "I'm leaving. I'm leaving this job. This might be a good job.
Yeah.
So I applied for it and I got this job
Right.
on the school district. And it was a great job. I was in charge of the transportation, the custodial, and the maintenance. And so I went from a union representative to a management representative.
Right. And you had to deal with union employees.
I had to deal with union employees.
Yeah. And so how was that having another hat on?
It was interesting. I got to see both sides,
Yeah.
you know. And I had this employee that had a tendency to be late quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to him and say, you're this, you're that, you need to get in here a little bit better and stuff. And she just kind of blew me off. And so I wrote her up saying, hey, you gotta make sure to be here and stuff. Well, she called her union rep in to talk to me. And we sat down, we were talking and stuff. And he read the complaint, the grievance and stuff. He said, so all you want from her is to show up on time. I said, yeah, that's all I want. And I said, well, that's her job, is to show up on time and work 8 hours. And so her job's all right. I said, yeah, she does a good job. She just doesn't show up on time. And the guy says, wow. He said, what did you do before this? I said, I did your job. And he laughed because he said, I knew something was up. And so he looked at the gal and he goes, you just need to show up on time. And it was really good for me to be in a management meeting to listen to people talk, and because, like I said before, the people that Blair Fur were good people.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, I bet he thought it was funny. So, I think I just have one last question for you. It's the last one on my list, which is looking at your job or looking back at your whole career. Do you have any other additional reflections or observations about what the work has meant to you and how it's impacted your life? I know that's like a really big question. This is your chance to say anything. Last things you want to say.
Yeah, I had this. After the school job, is I was offered a job on a small drilling company here in town in Eugene. So I quit the school district and took a job with them. And they were a small, multi-million-dollar company ran by a family-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
I could sit down with the owner of the business, he was my boss. And I got to see the inner workings of a business, and he told me, he says, I think you'd be a good asset to the company. I just got one favorite asset. He said, I don't want you to organize my shop. My shop employees are non-union.
Yeah.
My drillers are union.
And he knew you had a union background. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Right. I appreciate that. Come on in, because I think you'll be a good asset. And so I looked at the perspective of small business. And I watched this guy run a small business like a family.
Yeah.
And I've seen him give good insurance, good benefits to a bunch of non-union shop employees, and so people need to look at companies in a broad stroke. And that's what I learned is that, sure, I think a union is the best place to go as far as negotiation and stuff, company, and stuff. But it can be done too with a small company,
right,
and their employees,
Yeah.
And but I just learned a lot from being a union guy a management guy that worked for a small company.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all those jobs required one thing, and that was investing in people and talking to people,
Right.
you know. And, sure, you can do your job well, but if you don't relate well to other people, it doesn't work,
Yeah.
you know. You got to relate well to other people.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's those are good
It's been
words to end with.
I've been blessed.
Yeah.
I've been blessed. It's been a great life. I hope I live a lot longer, but it's
Yeah.
been a great life. I had ups and I've had downs, but I count them all blessed. You know,
Yeah.
strike, non-strike, work.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to reconnect with you, LeRoy. It's been a long time. So here I'm going
Yes.
to end the interview, and I have one other thing after we go off the record I want to tell you about.
All
So
right.
we're going to end the interview, the recording now. Hold on a sec.